Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1515B, and today's date is March 7th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Deep State Has Lost Control. The takedown will begin soon. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, everything that we talked about with North Korea, well, it looks like it's coming true. We talked about how China, Russia, Trump administration, South Korea, they were all talking about peace in the background, while the corporate media and Trump was feeding the corporate media all this ridiculousness of going to nuclear war to keep them completely off track of what was really going on there. And we've come to find out that the reason for a lot of these sanctions was because the deep state was intertwined within North Korea. And we are seeing that there are more sanctions being placed on North Korea because what they're trying to do is they're trying to pressure the North Korean government in getting these individuals out of North Korea. Now, what we've learned is that the Clintons and others, well, they have sold nuclear technology to the North Koreans. And we can see right now that they are continually placing sanctions on North Korea to push them in a completely different direction and not dealing with the deep state, but dealing with the new U.S. government, dealing with South Korea, and it seems to be working. Now, South Korea, North Korea, they've been speaking to each other. North Korea is saying, listen, we would like to speak to the United States. We will denuclearize if we have certain guarantees. Trump is out there saying that North Korea looks like they are sincere now on possible nuclear talks. So we can see right now the deep state, they are definitely losing control of this situation. And once again, Q was out there talking about watch the water. And there was a picture of, the Clintons on one side and Kim Jong-un on the other. And behind the Clintons was rough waters. And behind Kim Jong-un, it was peaceful waters. And it looks like that we're heading from rough waters to peaceful waters, but we need to watch the water just in case the deep state tries to pull something. And I think this is the message there of what is happening out in North Korea, but I definitely do think we're on the right track, and I do think that peace is going to come across that land. And we won't be going to war. North Korea was never going to fire a missile. If a missile was going to be fired at the United States, it was going to be from the deep state. If we see something headed towards the United States from the water, like say from a sub, it will be from the deep state. It will not be from North Korea. So we can see right now the deep state, they are definitely losing control. They're losing control of the narrative, and the corporate media doesn't know what to do with it. This is why they just take it out of the news cycle. And Q has mentioned that. Have you noticed that North Korea is no longer in the news cycle? The reason for this is because the corporate media, the intelligence agencies, the deep state, all behind this, is if you don't mention it, it doesn't exist. So they just remove it instead of explaining that there's peace going on. Yes, there are articles about peace and things like that. But before, all they kept on saying was, and they had all their experts on there, that North Korea is getting ready to attack. They're going to fire a missile at any moment. They can reach anywhere in the United States and they'll destroy the United States. If you notice, that type of talk is completely gone. We see right now the White House, and it's being reported that the White House is considering new attacks against the Syrian government in response to reports of chemical weapons. Now, let's think about this for a second. First of all, the Pentagon came out there and said there's no evidence whatsoever that Assad used chemical weapons. Russia came out and said it, and France said they can't find any evidence. They need proof before they'll do anything. This is coming from Daniel Coates, U.S. Director of National Intelligence. This is what the deep state wants to do. They put this out in the corporate media, and they push their agenda this way, making everyone believe that we're sending troops and we're ready to attack Syria. Trump is not sending troops in there to do anything, to remove Assad. Game over in Syria. Actually, what we're going to be seeing is troops coming home. That's what we're going to be seeing, and they don't like this. Already, Iraq is out there saying we need a timetable of when you're going to remove the troops from Iraq. Libya is having Russia come in and set up bases. And we see right now that Syria and Russia, they are saying it is time for the U.S. to leave Syria. And I think eventually what's going to happen as Trump and his administration, those patriots there who gain more control of government, the Pentagon, the intelligence agencies, they will start to remove troops from all of these areas. Yes, I know it's hard to believe, but this is definitely in play right now, and I'll explain that a little bit later in this report. We see that the deep state, well, they haven't given up. They're putting out propaganda films about the white helmets once again in Syria, and this time they found a baby under rubble and they picked it up and they ran with it. They didn't check to see if the baby was alive. They didn't check to see if the baby was injured. Actually, when you slow it down and you really take a look at it, it looks like a doll, and it looks like this is pure propaganda. And we see right now that the white helmets are at it again, and they're trying to do, and when I say they, I'm talking about the deep state, the neocons, they are trying to do whatever they possibly can to push their agenda, because they've done this in the past and it's worked. Now, today, it's not working as well as they would like, and they haven't stopped doing it. So what does the deep state do? How do they control everything that's going on if nothing's working? Well, it's called censorship. That's what they've been doing. Actually, Twitter was hiding Trump's post and Don Jr.'s posts, and they're saying that they're sensitive content. Now, if you take a look at their posts, you start to scratch your head and wonder, why are these really that sensitive? It doesn't really make sense. And here are some of the tweets that they said were too sensitive. Kim Jong-un hosts Seoul envoys first time since taking power. Boom. USA set to be the world's largest oil producer. And it goes on and on and on, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Donald Trump Jr., well, he was tweeting about censorship and how Twitter is censoring certain tweets. And they said this was too sensitive. So you can see right now that they are trying to censor. They're trying to make sure that people aren't seeing certain things, and I don't know why those are so sensitive. But Facebook, they've begun censoring Trump's posts on their platform as part of a clampdown on controversial content. In January, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced plans to deprioritize news from the news feed, admitting that users would no longer see updates from the most news outlets they follow. However, hidden in the small print was additional plans to also deprioritize the Trump Facebook account. So what they're trying to do, and they're doing this to the alternative media, is they're clamping down on what is being reported out there because they don't want you to hear anything else except what they are saying. But this is about to change. I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to go back to the Clintons who had donations from Australia, where their foundation received millions of dollars for AIDS. And we can see right now that there is an investigation going on. And the FBI, they've launched an investigation into allegations that the Clinton Foundation secretly stole tens of millions of Australian taxpayer funds. The Bureau has asked Australian policeman Michael Smith to provide information he has gathered detailing multiple allegations that the Clintons funneled taxpayer funds out of Australia with the help of former Australia Prime Minister Julia Gillard. The Clinton Foundation received some $88 million from the Australian taxpayers between 2006 and 2014, reaching its peak in 2012 and 2013, which was coincidentally Australian Prime Minister last year in office. The material Smith is giving to the FBI focuses on the 2007 Memorandum of Understanding between the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS Initiative and the Australian government. And we talked about this yesterday, and Q came out and was talking about the Clinton Foundation and how, they're in the middle of everything with the child trafficking in Haiti, how they're behind that. And we can see right now that Q is dropping a lot of intel right now. And I'm trying to weave this into what has been happening with the current news stories. Now, yesterday we talked about November 11th, 2018, where Trump said, we're going to have a parade that we're never going to forget, and that was on Veterans Day. And of course, Trump came out, weeks before this saying that he wanted a military parade. And of course, the corporate media was all crazy, like, we don't need a military parade. This is not North Korea. This is not Russia. But again, Trump was setting them up because he had different plans. And the plans are completely different than what they think. Now, if we go back in time, why is 11/11/18 so important? Well, one, it's Veterans Day. But two, at 11 o'clock in the morning, on the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, the World War I, known at the time as the Great War, came to an end. Back then, that Great War took some 9 million soldiers' lives. 21 million were wounded. And we talked about this yesterday, how this parade on November 11th, 2018, most likely would be our troops coming home, the wars ending around the world, in the Middle East, out in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and everywhere else. Somalia, Sudan, you name it. Our troops are everywhere. They're in something like 37 countries right now. And I think what he's trying to do is bring all of the troops back home. The wars they are fighting are for the central bank, the deep state. It's not for freedom. It's not for democracy. It's not to better the people of the United States. It's to better the deep state, the central bank's system, to line their pockets. And it looks like that this parade we will never forget. And if he does do this, we will never forget this. Now, there are others that are saying that he's also going to parade criminals down the streets who actually caused all of this to happen. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll have to wait and see. Q also dropped some intel on something that is very interesting, where you can create fake videos, where you can have somebody speaking and their facial expressions appear on someone else's face, their mouth moves, and you can basically fake a speech by someone else. So, for example, if you have the president, maybe he's dead, they prop him up in front of a television camera. You have someone else on the sideline. Both cameras are on each one of them. The one that's on the president, it's his face, you can see clearly. The other one, their facial expression, their mouth is then placed on the president, and you cannot tell that the president is not speaking, even though he's dead. And he's saying that they're going to try to use these fake videos. Now, I'm not saying they're going to be using it for Trump, but they might try to use it for some other reason or way. And he says they're going to fail. But it looks like they're going to try to give it a go to maybe make it look like some type of official is actually saying something when they're really not. Now, another thing that Q dropped was that they've located Snowden, and it looks like he is in Hong Kong. He set up a picture saying that Snowden is here. And we see at this point that Q is dropping a lot of intel, and one of the things that I think are very important is IBOR. And IBOR stands for the Internet Bill of Rights. And the deep state, this scares them more than anything else. Loss of control. They can't control social media. And they'll be very, very scared. If you notice, they've been taking down a lot of alternative media, anyone that deviates from their narrative. And I think they're doing this ahead of time because maybe there's more false flags coming up, and they don't want anyone questioning anything that's going on. So Q is saying that he was IBOR resistant, and now it looks like this is something that would actually be helpful to the everyday person. They're saying that these social media platforms must be regulated to prevent censorship and narrative push. Now, Soros tried to push net neutrality, and everyone's a little confused on what net neutrality meant. Net neutrality was on the ISP providers, Verizon, your cable company, that gave you access to the internet. And they said those need to be net neutral, where they can't, funnel traffic the way they want. Google, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest, they were completely exempt. There was no regulations on them. They could censor, they can funnel, they can manipulate, they can do whatever. But AT&T, Verizon, your cable companies, they couldn't. Now, of course, we didn't have to worry about them because they don't have social media. The deep state was more worried about, and Soros was more worried about, controlling what people were saying on social media. And Q said, who controls social media? Deep state, CIA. They're the ones who helped create it. They use taxpayer money to create this technology, a lot of it. And what they're saying right now is that IBOR, the Internet Bill of Rights, is something that needs to be looked at. And what this means is that there'd be no more data mining for ads, no more algorithms screwing up on how we communicate with others on Facebook, no more capturing my favorite soda to sell to a competitor who might want to make me buy something else. And also, and really important, is the right to be forgotten, the right to delete your information from the internet, to keep your information private. The UK is already looking at this, looking to do this. And we can see right now that the deep state is going to be in trouble because what they have right now is the control of social media. They tried to control it with fact-checking. They tried to control it in all different ways of removing different individuals that are speaking out. But at this point, it looks like everything is going to be turned around, and these social media sites are going to be brought into line, most likely with this Internet Bill of Rights. And we can see that at this point, the deep state, and remember, Q also said there's going to be a dead cat bounce. It looks like they're going to try to do something, and it most likely won't work, but it's going to be pretty darn big, so they can convince the world and the country that this is actually happening, whatever the false flag it's going to be. It could be another event like we saw in Parkland, or it could be something out in North Korea. But whatever it is, we can see that they're going to push this false flag event. And I think after this happens, if it's not stopped some way, somehow, I think what's going to happen is the deep state is going to lose control rapidly. And we're going to see social media change. We're going to see a lot of things change. And the deep state's going to continually lose control. And eventually what's going to happen is they're going to make their move on the Clinton Foundation, the Clintons, McCain, and other individuals that have been corrupt, doing things illegally, who've been working with child trafficking, who've been working with the drug industry, who've been working with covert funds across the globe, who've been selling uranium-1 nuclear technology to other countries. And most of these individuals, I don't think they're going to stand trial. I think they're going to run. They might have bunkers already set up where they can hide and nobody knows where they are. Maybe the NSA and the rest already have information on where they'll be. I think a lot of them might suicide themselves. And for those who are left who will stand trial, America is definitely going to be shocked. And I think we're heading to that period very, very soon, because we can see as we get closer to November, there's going to be a lot of stuff happening between now and November for the wars to come to an end and have this parade. That means everything between now and then will have to be in line, where they're most likely going to have indictments. They're going to have information come out. There's going to have to be reasons why we're pulling out of all these countries. And we can see that a lot of things are going to take place. And I think this is why we're seeing everything happen once and everything's accelerating. And we also see Trump taking the economic narrative away from the central bank. We also see audit the Fed going to be pushed. And hopefully, if it is voted on and approved, we know Trump is definitely going to sign it. So we see everything is happening all at once, and we're going to have to follow this very, very carefully, because there's going to be a lot more information coming out. And again, we don't know exactly what the deep state's going to do, but they're going to push their agenda, and we're going to see the next event. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.